So, it's 2023, and I think it's a good time to talk about the Vita again, especially since so many handhelds came out in 2022, which kind of changed the value of this device, I think, as a whole. I'd say a year or 2 years ago, this actually used to be like a really lucrative device still, and I still think it holds up in a lot of ways. But now we have the AY1 Odin, which came out last year and properly started shipping out to people, especially towards the end of last year, with the light models as well. And then we also got the Retro Pocket 3 Plus, and this is a device that costs £150, $150, and it can upscale PSP games quite well and even play some PS2 games. So at that budget price, you're getting a really big deal, you know, there's a lot of handheld to enjoy here. And for the same amount of price, that's what you'd expect to be paying for a decent Vita. And I mean one that's in a decent condition. The lower end, you're going to be finding ones which are scratched or faulty and need fixing, and that's to the OLED model. I'm not actually too sure about the prices for the slim model here. The slim model is one I actually got at the end of 2021. No, this is the first model I got. The OLED is the one I got in 2021, and I personally decided that I liked the OLED a lot more. There's a lot of people that like the slim version more because it's a bit, well, slimmer, and it has a little bit more battery life, and I guess there's a few other reasons people prefer it more. It is quite comfortable, but it is very slim. I actually find it more comfortable to be holding the OLED model, the 1000. It's a little bit thicker, but there's something about it I just really enjoy. I even find the sticks quite comfortable to use with certain games. So we're going to talk about like the form factor, the buttons, and do they still hold up? Are they very good? And the differences between the two devices, and what we really can expect going forward with handhelds, and does this actually have a place anymore in people's collections, or if you're just looking for that one handheld to buy that does what you hope it should do. So this is the PlayStation Vita, and obviously it plays Vita games, and there's a lot of them. And if you like to, especially if you jailbreak your device, you can get access to quite a lot of them if you wish. I think the stores are still up and you can still buy them, but you know, we're getting in a day and age now where we worry about certain companies not, you know, keeping the past alive and giving us access to the games we still want to play. So you can get a PlayStation Vita as is, or you can even jailbreak it now, and there's even easier ways to do this. You can do this now completely online without having to use a PC, and it's not very complicated at all. And what jailbreaking allows you to do is you can then emulate games. You can use RetroArch, for example, to play just your old classics, other arcade titles, some N64. I can't remember if you could originally play PSP anyway, but you can use Adrenaline here to basically use this as a PSP and play all your PSP and PS1 titles. As well as the PS Vita titles, you have access to ports such as Sonic Mania, which is a recent one actually. This is one where you actually need to own the original files of the game. So if you own it on PC, for example, you would have to transfer a file over after installing the port, and then you have access to the whole game on your Vita, which is pretty incredible. The only downside, we'll have a look at it later, is that the bonus levels are kind of slow. The Vita is, well, it's old tech, so with some of the, you know, we can install plugins to actually overclock the CPU even higher, which gives us a little bit of a boost. I think it can increase a couple of PS Vita games just a bit more FPS, but it also helps with emulation. That's really the best reason to use it. So there's ports, there's Streets of Rage Remake. Now this is one of the only handhelds that lets you play Streets of Rage Remake. It's not the most up-to-date version. I think it's like 5.2 or something. There is a version I think you can play on the PPSSPP emulator, but Streets of Rage Remake is not on Android, which is so you would have to emulate it through PPSSPP. I don't even know if that's the latest version. So surprisingly, for a handheld, the Vita is one of the best ways to play Streets of Rage Remake. I think there's another port around here. Sonic Mania, AM2R, that's it. Metroid 2 Remake, and that's a really good game. And the option to play that handheld is great as well, but that's also on Android. So, you know, it's not unique to the PlayStation Vita. And when you also jailbreak it, you have a lot of other options. So for example, these backgrounds I have here are from Demon Souls, and I customized this a little bit. You can have access to a themes manager. There's a Homebrew browser where we can look at different games and ports and emulators and things you can download. We'll have a look at that in a moment, actually. And Autoplugin, which gives us a massive library of different plugins for different quality of life upgrades. I think one of them is to see the actual battery. There's this one that allows us to go past the threshold for the volume. There's a bunch of things, and we'll look at that too. So that's a really good one. So let's have a look at, there's two, this is Better Home Browser and this is Vita Homebrew Browser, and there's some problems with this, and sometimes it takes a little while to load, but I'm not going to use that one because I think it shows my IP address. So we're going to have a look at this one. And it's a pretty simple one. You have to download some icons when you first use it, but once you start using it, it's quite easy to see like the just how much stuff there is. So that's the all category. I don't know if I have to tap up here. Games, Ghost of Tsushima minigames. I've never played it. There's loads of these weird ports and games here. So there's just like general games here. I don't know any of these. Well, Five Nights at Freddy's sounds familiar. I think if you're a PlayStation Vita enthusiast, a lot of this stuff will interest you, just to see that the Vita can do all this stuff. It's always nice to see a console doing stuff it's not usually meant to do, or, you know, that's what Homebrew's about. Emulators, so this is a hit and miss. Hit and miss is a good term with the Vita. So I don't know about Scum, I've never tried anything on there. Dreamcast is not fantastic at all. Pretty much most games are not going to run at full speed. A lot of them run quite badly. Again, it's one of those things where it's interesting to see that the Vita can kind of pull it off, but even with overclocking the CPU a little bit, it just doesn't run Dreamcast well at all. It's a shame. Everything about the Vita is beautiful, really. Even over 10 years later, the whole device is just, it's so good to look at. It feels great, but it just needs more power, you know. If Sony released a Vita today, the exact same model with more power, I think strangely it might do well, you know. And I think that's because, you know, if you imagine people who treat handhelds like Android devices, the amount of flexibility you have there, that could be a really neat thing if someone officially, like Sony, brought out a console where they released their games and allowed a lot of flexibility. But I'm just rolling out ideas here. But when it comes to emulation, GBA is fantastic on this device because the screen is wide. This model is an OLED screen, so that makes it just really beautiful to look at in the first place. GBA just fits across it nicely. You can just like lay in bed and play GBA for hours, really, and it just feels fantastic to play. The highest this device really goes up to is N64, and it can do a lot of N64, but not all of it. Some of it struggles. I know I actually played most of Banjo-Kazooie on this device, but there were some levels where it would just crash. Or I remember the Click Clock Forest. I forget the name of it, but that one it had a hard time with here and there. I might even have a save we can look at and we can check that out. But there's all sorts of weird emulators here. I use RetroArch. Ports is probably the most interesting one for most people. Dead Space Vita is actually a port of the Android title for phones. It's a really old game, actually, and it's not as interesting as it sounds. But if you wanted to play that on the Vita, you can totally do that. No idea what Sanis Ball is. Heroes of Might and Magic 3. Mass Effect Infiltrator. I don't know if that's an Android game or something, but it's pretty interesting to see what people have been porting over to the Vita, and it's nice to see that's still alive. And this is only the recent ones. There's definitely some older titles that are really interesting to play, but I've only been interested in a few of them, so that's mainly Sonic Mania, AM2R, and Streets of Rage Remake. Utilities is just, you know, some quality of life stuff and some stuff to just dealing with the Vita itself. So that's the store. So yeah, modding gives you tons more potential on the Vita, which is great. But as I said, going into 2023, do you want to spend $80 to $150 or pounds on this device when you could basically, so the Retroid Pocket 3 Plus, for example, it does all of that. All it's missing is the Vita. So what the Vita has, and I know it sounds so basic, is that it just has its Vita library. And if that's something that really interests you, there's no other handheld that has that yet. But that could change in 2023. And to be honest with you, as soon as Vita emulation happens on Android, and if it's good, I'm going to be starting to use the AYN Odin again, because this was already a beast. You know, you could play a lot of PlayStation 2 on here. Lots of PlayStation 2 titles. And the one thing I kept telling myself, the way it looks as well, is like, God, this would be a perfect Vita machine if that was capable of doing it. It's coming, and hopefully it will be good. So that's going to be quite exciting. And once you have like modded this stuff, like Vitashell makes managing your storage and installing VPKs. So a VPK is like a file you install, just like a APK or another Windows installation device. And it's really easy to get it onto your storage. You just put it in like your main folder and find it down here and just click on it. And it will install very easily. And I should also say one of the benefits of modding your PlayStation Vita, I don't want to... Can I open it up? I don't know which slot it's in. I don't know what that is. Is it in this one? In there is an SD to Vita adapter. And you can see there's an SD card inside that white card. So the white card is an adapter. And once you mod your PlayStation Vita, it allows you to use regular SD cards to use as storage. So like a 512 gigabyte or 1 terabyte. Because, for example, this model of Vita doesn't have an internal storage. It only has proprietary Vita cards, PlayStation Vita cards, and they're very expensive and they're very small. They're very hard to get as well. And I can't remember if I still have one in here somewhere. But then the 2000 model, which is the slim model, this actually has, I think, a 1 gigabyte internal storage. And when I modded this one again, I actually based this Vita entirely on its internal storage. So I only have 1 gigabyte on here, and I used it purely on SNES, Mega Drive, GBA, and N64 games. So I haven't even thought about Vita games on here. And I thought this could be a cool little like thin device for one day just playing some retro titles, even though, to be honest, I don't use it anymore. And but it was cool at the time, and I did use it a fair bit, especially when I first got it. This is what I exclusively played PlayStation, PS1 titles, actually. I played Vagrant Story on here, which I absolutely loved, and had an amazing time with that until I switched to the OLED model, because I just ended up getting one and I preferred it. But even this version, for example, when you're playing SNES, see, this isn't even the RetroArch emulator. This is a unique one, which you can get separately, like on that Homebrew store I just showed you. And I'm going to show, so, where is it? Super Mario World 2, Yoshi's Island. So this is like one of the hardest games to run on the Super Nintendo. And even so both of these models do not run this game very well. You see, we got to the start screen, and it's just not great. It's actually better on RetroArch. So I'll show you on this one actually. Let's have a look at some classic retro games. It's going to go to RetroArch. And it's more optimized. Things are more optimized in RetroArch. There's different cores you can use, so you can experiment around a little bit. Generally, there is like one core that is better than the others. I think if I look at my history here, I am using SNES 9X 2002. I think this was the best one. Oh, I gotta press this button. What did I set my hotkeys to? Is it this and left? That's another thing. Sometimes on the Vita, some of this stuff's a little bit slower. Alright, so that and left. It runs better on here, but you can see up there, it's 50 frames instead of 60, and we can hear the sounds a little bit choppy. Even my inputs feel a touch sluggish. I'm getting this confused with other handhelds now. I thought I got this running once really well. I feel like I'm going to have to check my old Vita video, because I don't think anything's changed. But besides this game, like pretty much every other game on the SNES is going to run fine on here. And one of these days, I'm going to have to get a better camera for capture, because the way it looks here, it's nice on the video, but the colors pop a lot more in person. However, on the Vita, we have GBA, and GBA is fantastic. Actually, one of the best ways to play, if you want to play Yoshi's Island, you can actually just play the Game Boy Advance version. I can't remember if that starts in S. Super Mario Advance 3 Yoshi's Island. I think ggSP is the best one. It's been quite a while since I actually used the Vita for just like casually playing games. I can't quite remember. So because it's Game Boy Advance, the game's naturally going to be like a little bit wider than the SNES version. I feel like there's an argument where people say that the SNES version is actually better, but again, I'd have to look that one up. Is that Chris Pratt? That's so funny. Look at that. That one runs perfectly. It's funny, isn't it? Choose a game. Mushroom Kingdom. Here we come. Strange, actually. Everything looks like it's stretched a bit vertically compared to the SNES one. The viewing angles are really decent on this too. Whoa, it's actually kind of trippy. So yeah, Game Boy Advance is super, super good on here. Oh my god, I haven't actually played the GBA version, so I didn't know he was going to make that sound. It feels really nice to use this device. It feels so good in the hands. Oh man, the map's different. So I'm not exactly like trying to like cup it or grip it in a weird way. I just feel very comfortable just sort of just where I am. It's just very loose and it doesn't feel heavy either. And maybe it's because I have bigger hands or I'm just a larger person, but I find that more comfortable to play than this one. With this one I feel like I'm trying to like pinch it weirdly and it's just, it's not bad. But I definitely feel like, I remember saying this actually, if you wanted to play PlayStation Vita titles, I think it's better on here because it just feels more natural to use the sticks on here. Just better grip for it. So, what are my buttons? Are there any other retro games when I have a look on it? So Game Boy Advance, they all run fantastically. I don't really know if there's any more I want to test on there. NES, SNES, Genesis. So if you were looking to play retro titles on a premium handheld that works very well and is supposedly even easier to jailbreak than ever now, with an OLED screen and decent battery life, this is solid. You could play a lot of RetroArch on here. The other thing we'll have a quick look at is... so I've got this separately here. It's CPS to PSP. So this is basically Capcom 2 arcade thing, and I have about 10 titles on here, and they're just like, they're games you would most likely have on MAME, but it seems like MAME isn't very easy to emulate on RetroArch on here. Can't remember, it's been a while actually. And on here I have a bunch of titles which are very arcadey, a lot of fun to play. Dungeons and Dragons, both of those are awesome titles. You can sink a lot of time into those. I always like to look at Alien vs Predator. Just that there's a lot of stuff that goes on the screen. The only downside about this emulator in particular is it's got to load all this stuff up and it takes ages. Whereas I could literally turn on that retro, if I just go like, oh, I want to play and now I'm going to take forever. I want to play Alien vs Predator. And like, I'm already in. I beat you to it, Vita. But it looks fantastic on here. And actually, I am curious. Let me load this up too. Because this is in the 4:3 ratio. I've also got bezels on here. I don't know how I feel about them actually, because they have this annoying like curve edge that you can't get rid of. There's no option in the MAME emulator for Android to like stretch those bezels out a bit. Oh no. Link Kurosawa. Yeah. And then this version, how do I add coins? I'm not sure if this is stretched or if it's natural. It seems a little bit stretched. I just like her because she's got the sword. She's a real badass. Damn, I don't actually know if this is stretched or not, because the aliens look alright. I love those aliens just coming out the alleyway. Just like gently creeping out of there. Yeah, I don't have a lot of arcade titles on this Vita, but you can download loads of them if you want. There's a large selection. But I do remember this emulator in particular. I did find it a bit difficult to set up at first. I can't remember. Actually, that might be a bad representation, because what I did is I first modded this PlayStation Vita, then I took the SD2 card over to this PlayStation Vita, which caused a lot of problems, and I didn't know that was going to happen. So if you're ever thinking about, if you ever modify one PlayStation Vita and are thinking about going to another PlayStation Vita, start from the scratch. Start from the beginning, because otherwise you'll run into issues you do not even need to bother with. This is a badass game. Die, aliens. Nice. So then I exit, if it'll let me. Exit PSP. So that's arcade stuff. Let's have a look at Nintendo 64. I haven't actually looked at this in a really long time. It's weird, sometimes I plan these videos out. I do have like specific things in mind, but I always find if I try and work to a script or get very, very specific about certain things, I either spend too long or for some reason it doesn't work out very well for me. However, this is interesting. I do sort of think because sometimes you watch videos and you get like a slice of what's going on. I do like to see a video where it's like, oh, that's what's happening. Okay, so there's no BS. And I am connected to the internet. I'm wondering if this is just a Vita thing, just like being slow. Is it just gonna take its time? Let's see if it happens with the Slim, because I have N64 games on here as well. Oh, that PlayStation button's really nice. I didn't really think about that, but they're different. That one's sort of oval shaped, and this one's like circular. That's really weird. I haven't touched the N64. Oh no, it is. It's doing something. It's just very slow. That's so odd. Do you think it will do it with this one as well? No, this one seems to be doing just fine. Very interesting. So this one's overclocked well as well. So these are games, I think, because I only had a limited amount of data on this memory, on this internal storage, I only put a certain amount of titles on here. Banjo-Kazooie. This might even be the Vita that I actually played Banjo-Kazooie on, so this probably does have the save state. So it says it's launching. Let's go back to this Vita. It's gone 4 out of 5. That's really strange. So this emulator actually is kind of strange. It has like a mouse. You can even use the touchscreen if you like. So if I go to load save state. Was it the other Vita I played this on? Alright, we'll load a different game. Diddy Kong Racing is a good one to look at because it's popular and it's fun to play. I'm starting to wonder the reason, because there's a lot more games on that Vita than there is on this one. Okay, so there's some menu glitches and errors there, but apart from that, we are in game. And it's widescreen too. No! Need that balloon. Alright, let's just run into this. And then we'll have a look at the other video for a moment. This is some fantastic video right now. It is, it's just loaded. Wow, that took a really long time. That's so strange. But you see, I had my backup Vita on hand. I can't remember what I set the buttons as. But look, Diddy Kong Racing's running really well. It looks really good actually. Even on the screen, I can't remember if I set the Vita saturation up. There's a plugin that lets you change the colors on the device to look more like a Vita. It's pretty colorful. It's brightening up the whole screen. One of these days, I'm hoping to be moving later this year, and what I'd like to do is have set up a little area that's better for recording and doing more handheld stuff, because I do really like making these videos, but I'd like to set it up in a way that I can actually maybe focus on little sections a bit better and edit them, but still try and give this accurate slice of somebody actually just playing the thing without any cuts or... Because one thing with these handhelds is you will always run into problems. Hello, Mr. Vita here. So, let's have a look at... Does the D-pad work? Let's have a look at Banjo-Kazooie. Because I want to show you a game that definitely has some problems. GoldenEye doesn't work well on the Vita. Let's be realistic, shall we say, because there's a list there. You can pick a list that says games that are playable, games that have problems. So let's say 4 out of 5 games are playable, but no, I'd say maybe 3 out of 5 games on the Nintendo 64 on the Vita will run perfectly. But I haven't tested enough to be completely accurate about that. So let's have a look. Do have a save state, and this should be click clockwards. What's going on? Save state loaded. Oh, do I have to press? Okay, I had to press the button again. So you can see in this level that's going to just keep dropping to about 20 frames. And if we're lucky, well, not if we're lucky, we might even see it crash. Yeah, I don't know why I didn't finish this. I got this far into the game and I just kind of stopped playing. I think when you play a game like this, especially when you're younger, you like value it a bit more and you don't mind the repetition so much. But like collecting notes and jiggies does get a bit tiresome. Oh my god, I can't get on this leaf. Oh my god, I cannot get on this leaf. This music is perfect for me. Like idiot man can't play the game. But yeah, if you wanted to play something like Banjo-Kazooie on here, that's funny, when you go in first person it's better. That makes no sense. But if you wanted to play Banjo-Kazooie on here, you would expect to run into slowdown here and there and even crashes as well. What is it? Is it? Z and left stick to it. Like, I've only played this once, like in its entirety, and I think I was... How old was I? $11 or something? I don't know. And I just need to check, is this overclocked as well? It's not. Woo! It's like the sound effects for the thing. That's amazing. Save profile. Oh no. So with that little bit of overclock, it might actually help with some of the frame rates here. Oh no. I don't want to. They'll all come after me. I want to leave. No. Ow. Oh, I'm stuck here. Wait a minute. I actually, because of that overclock, I actually just want to double test that the first area might actually have improved frame rate. It's a little bit better. I think when I played this, I might not have actually had the overclock on. So with that extra overclock, we do actually get a little bit better performance. And sod off, mate. Oh, he's going to hit me. I knew he was going to hit me. God, that leaf is so frustrating. So yeah, with that extra overclock, this actually is a little bit better. That's cool. But it is kind of annoying to keep hearing that the music chopping up like that. So yeah, that's N64 emulation. I don't want to spend too long on that. So we've looked at retro stuff. Let's have a look at PSP and PlayStation 1. This is like... So let me just get comfy again. Spend a lot of time. 35 minutes. Hello, long video. Shouldn't be surprised. So the Vita actually has hardware in there that lets you play like the PSP natively, basically. I'm not sure if there's a bit of hybrid in there. So this is actually a handheld that lets you play PSP games as intended. I always look at Ultimate Ghosts and Goblins. Let's have a look at... Let's jump into Castlevania. PSP has some like really good platformers, lots of good RPGs. So if your angle with buying a Vita was to play something that was like actual hardware and like to preserve something, you're basically playing all these games as intended, but it is their original resolutions. So, you know what, maybe I'll load this up at the same time too. If I go to my Retro Pocket 3 Plus and, oh, I almost forgot how to use this for a moment. And if I go over to PSP, and where is Castlevania? If we have a look at the settings here, we can see that we're playing this at 3x resolution. And are there any cheats? No. So you can actually put 60 FPS patches on some games, which is just awesome. It's definitely a good reason to emulate. And there's only a few games for PPSSPP on this emulator that actually have any kind of slowdown at all. So on this $150 device, you can play upscaled PSP, like pretty much every game almost flawlessly. There's only a few I've heard that do not work very well, just like Phantasy Star Portable 2. Apparently Patapon has input errors the further you go into. Whoop. Okay, so we've heard enough German for now. Let's have a quick look at both these games together, and then you can see if it actually bothers you, like this at its native resolution or that at 3x. Like maybe you'd prefer one over the other, but this screen is still really nice. There's no bezels either. When you think about it, there's no bezels. That's so gorgeous. It's starting to make me think of the Geek 2 now. I'm still waiting on any news about the AYN Loki, which is the new Windows handheld coming by the people who made the Odin. But the Geek 2 doesn't have any bezels, and it's really good. It's just expensive. The Loki's going to be like a decent, cheaper Windows alternative. I'm going to be doing videos on it when I get mine, so look out for that. So that's Castlevania on the Vita. Let's have a look at the... There we go. Let's have a look at the Retro Pocket 3. That's upscaled. So this is not an OLED screen, but this is using a script that tries to achieve OLED-like colors, saturation. And it does look really nice. It actually looks a little bit better in person. Whoops. I'm such an idiot. Yes, sir. So, let's have a look at these two together. Damn, you can see the brightness on the Vita actually pops a lot more. The colors are really great on here. And to be fair, I should... Let me just kill this guy and this guy. Whoops. I should... How can I do it up here? Turn the brightness all the way up. Give it a fairer chance. Damn, the Vita pops a lot more, doesn't it? It's so much brighter. That's weird. Is that just a screen thing, or is there something else in the game, in the emulator? It feels like you can see all those like individual details pop out more, but it is at 1x. And the colors are rich here, but it's not as bright as the Vita. That's really interesting. I would feel like somebody looking at this would definitely make a certain decision here about what they'd rather play it on and buy. I mean, we can definitely see that 3x resolution has made things sharper and a bit more crisp. Whereas here, everything's a bit more pixelated, but that brightness is standing out, especially in the background when you look at the sky. I'm glad I did that comparison, actually. That's interesting. That's another thing we should have a look at, the viewing angles here on the Retro Pocket 3. They're pretty good. But it's dark. In person, that wouldn't bother me. I kind of like the richness of it, but when you put them together, the Vita is just so bright. Oh. Damn. So, let's quit that. Let's have a look at PS1 game on here. When I play PlayStation 1 games and some older games, I do set the aspect ratio a bit wider than usual. And that's because I just like to just utilize the screen a bit more. I think a little bit of stretching is okay, but too much can, you know, make it look not fantastic. Now this is one of those points I probably should edit a video. What is going on? Oh, it's just restarting. I do have a save, so I have a clear data here and I have one like right at the end of the game. So we'll just have a little look at how PS1 is on here. This is a good time to talk about how the Vitas only have one shoulder button and they do not have left stick or right stick clicks. L3 and R3 do not exist. So that's one of the biggest downside of the device is you will notice that immediately and it is annoying. But what the Vita does instead is, for example, if you need L2 or R2, you can set that to like different directions of the stick if you need to. Different buttons here and there. But if I go to... that's not it. I need to hold the home button in. It's been a while. And go to settings. If I go to settings here... No, I need to go to official settings. Oh my god. It's a PlayStation and I'm pressing circle to go OK. Official settings, controller settings, and you can assign custom buttons to a game. I'm not sure if that's per game actually, but you can do that. You can assign touchscreen controls. So for example, there's 4 different corners here. I can tap one and say, well, I'd like that to be L2 because I don't have an L2 button. I'd like that to be R2 because I don't have an R2 button. I'd like this to be R3, L3. So if you need to touch the screen at all, there you've got the missing buttons, and that's pretty good actually, especially with PS1 titles because they don't always utilize all 4 shoulder buttons and rarely L3 or R3, so you kind of got it covered there. And you can set it to use the analog stick as well instead of the D-pad, which is cool, and you can use rear touch if you want, but I'd rather do not because the amount of times you use your fingers for leverage and just accidentally press stuff. So Yes, I do not want to use that. I can't remember how I've set the buttons before, so I feel like I set buttons to the left stick and right stick where to change the angles, but no, I've not set the buttons on this version. And I can't remember what Vagrant Story's original buttons were. So, well, it wasn't the trigger buttons. I'll just have to make do with not turning the camera. Vagrant Story is a really good game, by the way. It's very difficult to start. It has a very niche combat system. It's unlike anything else you've ever played. And even I found it difficult to understand, even like towards the middle of the game, because like every enemy has like different attribute and you get different weapons, and the combat is so interesting, but it's at its best when you get it, and then it gets really exciting the more you get into it. No, I can't reach over there. I don't know what I'm doing. Let's have a look at one more PlayStation title. And the more I think about it now, actually comparing a PS1 title to another device probably wouldn't have been that interesting. Let's have a look at... Let's have a look at Resident Evil 2. Because of the Retro Pocket 3, I've gotten so used to Start and Select being up there. But it is nice having these Start and Select buttons down here. All these buttons feel really nice and clicky. Even after 10 years, just these buttons are so good. I like these buttons so much. I put them on the Retro Pocket 3 Plus, and God, I feel like I do need to slightly twist that triangle button, just slightly. But I absolutely love them. But the difference here is these ones are like conductive, whereas these ones are just, the press is a lot shorter. And you can change that in the Retro Pocket 3, but it doesn't actually bother me. Ooh, those sounds. When I was a kid and played Resident Evil 1, I remember buying it from a secondhand store, and I didn't know this at the time, but I was at the very end of the game. Like, I was literally a few rooms from fighting the tyrant. I don't know why, I was just scared, and I think I sold it and I never finished it. But then I did eventually finish it, especially when I played the GameCube remake. Oh, that reminds me, Resident Evil 4 Remake is coming out in March. Like 2 months. 2 months' time. Holy crap, that's crazy. Gonna be really interesting. So I've never played this on here. And this is one of those games I would actually prefer to set the ratio on the screen. So let's get away from these zombie douchebags. Oh my god. I'm already nearly dead. So, if I hold this and go to settings... Wait, actually, bad time to do that, because all I see is black. What are you doing here? So if I go to settings, and then I go to... must be official settings. And then other settings, screen mode. And if I set it to custom, ooh, so we've got it that stretch the screen. But if I grab the edges, ooh, oh no. Wait. It's weird. It's like phone stuff, because I like to stretch it a bit more. Okay, I think I like basically got it perfect. And then if I just move it around a bit. So it's like full screen, but I've stretched the edges a bit. So that's how I'd usually do it.
Freeze! Who are you? What are you doing here? Hold your fire! I'm a human!
There's something so exciting about playing old PlayStation games on a handheld. And it's kind of crazy to me that Sony has never offered that option, ever. Wait, what am I saying? They had the PSP. It's because I didn't own a PSP, okay? But I mean after PlayStation, so... PlayStation 2 in particular. My brother had a PSP. I used to borrow it from time to time. But we never actually played PS1 titles on it, actually. But still, what I said stands. Playing old PlayStation titles on a handheld is seriously good. There's something massively comforting about it. Yeah, and we're also playing PS1 titles on an OLED screen. That's cool, right? Oh my god. I remember I didn't actually play Resident Evil 2, the original, until 2019. I played Resident Evil 2 Remake, then I played Resident Evil 2 Original. I did both scenarios, so I played it throughout its complete entirety. I was like, damn, that's a really good video game. So yeah, that works really good. We haven't even looked at any Vita titles yet. Let's have a look at some Vita games. Like for example, Gravity Rush is an exclusive for the Vita, or it was at the time. It is on the PlayStation 3. I think you can play it through PlayStation 4. I think Gravity Rush is one of those games they should put on PC, and I really would love to see Gravity Rush 2 with a 60 FPS patch. That game is beautiful, and it's a really good game. If you've never played Gravity Rush, this is the kind of hidden gem you will one day play and you'll get addicted to, and then you'll find out there's Gravity Rush 2. So I played 1 before 2 came out. I think I only had to wait like 6 months for it. I played Gravity Rush 2 and I was just... such a good game. So good. This is another game that makes some cool use out of the touchscreen functionality. Wait, let's have a look at the... So we're on 333 Hertz for some reason. If I bump that up, let's just bump all this up. So I'm pressing select and down, by the way, but I've also got this plugin activated. So this is from Autoplugin, I think. I'm going to have to double check that. Because when the game started, you could see the frame rate was going between 20 and 30. And hopefully... Oh, so if I press select up, 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 it will go to that menu. Then select down, 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 and I can turn it off. So touch the apple. Oh, and if I use the gyro, look at that. This thing was ahead of its time, man. The Vita is like Dreamcast territory. The Dreamcast is one that deserved more love. Love? Love. Tap the apple. Can I like swing it? You're supposed to just pull it. So yeah, touchscreen on the front, touchscreen on the back, as I mentioned. You also have a camera here and a camera here. But obviously, because these are so old, that camera is going to be really old tech. The language in this is gibberish. It's nice, but it's gibberish. You don't have to listen to it. And the music in this is fantastic. I wish I could remember the composer's name now. Same composer that did Alundra. The music in Gravity Rush 2 is incredible. if you love music, my god, this composer is one of the greats in video games. So I haven't actually played this on the Vita before. Oh wait, oh, the camera's automatic for now. I can't remember exactly when you get your gravity powers. And are you wondering, is that dog in the game or is that dog in real life? The Vita has some really good looking games. Wait, is it touchscreen? Damn, you couldn't do this on the PlayStation. That's cool. That's really cool. So good, man. I can't remember another device that does this so well. Blah, 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 blah. See, that dog is definitely in the game. There's a dog and he doesn't like this mysterious man. I think it takes some time before you get your, like, powers. But this gyroscope stuff's really neat. I think one of the reasons why it's so neat is because the screen is so good. The OLED and no bezels. Makes you feel like a port to another... I don't know why I'm still doing it. It's not doing anything now. It's like a portal to another world. Let's have a look at... let's have a look at the ports, actually. So, Sonic Mania. God, this is like a real YouTuber video. I haven't even shown any games until the end, the end of the video. So, as I said before, this is... You can get this... So, basically, on the Homebrew browser store, this is what I started with. I downloaded Sonic Mania, but it does not allow you to play the game. You have to transfer a file. So let's say you've bought the game on the PC and installed it. There's a file in your installation folder, and then you can transfer it over to a specific folder in Sonic Mania on the Vita, and now you have Sonic Mania. This is a relatively new port. I think it was like later in 2022. And I only tried it for the first time like a day or two ago. And yeah, the screen just screams at you with colour. But I want to get to the first special stage and just show you that the Vita is still not capable of running something like this. The thing is, because it's a port, I think this is like running as best as a Vita would do anyway. I don't know. Like, obviously, if it was built purposely for the Vita, they would, you know, make it differently. But with pure power and this game, it can't seem to do the special stages. And I always tell myself, okay, if you just play Sonic Mania, and run straight forward, you will get to that special stage no matter what. There it is. Okay. So, yeah, it's starting to slow down a little bit now. Even though it says 30 frames in the top left or whatever, it is actually quite slow. Oh, it's changing. That's right, because this is a 60 FPS game. So if I just have a quick look at the CPU is overclocked. So this is the best it's going to do. So if you really wanted to play this on the Vita, get all the emeralds, you just have to grip and bear these special stages. It seems like the main game is going to run absolutely fine. Hey, as long as you collect these orbs, you'll go faster. That might help. But yeah, I'm not going to keep showing that. It's just special stages are slow. The other cool thing we have here is Streets of Rage Remake. Although, oh, whoops. I can't remember if this one had any problems. I think I remember at first there used to be a problem with, I think it was the longer you played the game, the slower it would get. I think it's fixed. And that's really slow. Why? That's just really slow. I don't know why. It's doing some secret loading in the background. You should only do secret loading when other stuff. Oh, save state? Okay, cool. At some time I was playing this. Now, a lot of people like Streets of Rage Remake because it basically gets all the best things out of Streets of Rage 1, 2, and 3 into like one massive game. And to be honest, it's a project that Sega should have endorsed and worked with because it's so good. And if my memory serves me right, when they made this game, one of the reasons... I can't remember if Sega eventually did try and cease and desist it, but what they did is they made everything from scratch. So nothing was actually ripped from the original games. No code. I'm not sure about the sprites. And I keep thinking this is Streets of Rage 3. If it's not, there used to be a star system up there, and there was like a certain combination of buttons you could do to do like the best moves. Otherwise, you're supposed to earn your stars by just playing well and not dying. Anyway, Streets of Rage is really fun, and if you could get Streets of Rage 4 on here, that would be sweet. But it is on Android, so a lot of phones and handhelds can play Streets of Rage 4. Both the Odin and the Retro Pocket 3 Plus can. Yeah, that's just a man in the microphone going. And as I said, this is, I think, the only way on a handheld to play Streets of Rage Remake, specifically this version. Otherwise, there's like a sort of decent version that works through PPSSPP. That's something I have to look into again, actually. Because this is one of those games which is like a must-have. You know, so if I, for example, when I get the Loki, which is a Windows handheld, I would definitely get the latest version of this game on there. Oh my god. Alright, so that's another port. As I said, AM2R, here's another port. All these games are grouped in here by category, so I'm just going to show some ones that might interest you. Killzone, Metal Gear Solid HD Collection. Difficult to play though because of the lack of buttons. Uncharted, and as usual, he has his... I don't know why they chose that icon. He is just... He's scared or stoned or something. Whoever chose that thumbnail, they're not getting a pay rise. You look at these other cool ones. Like, they're all decent except for him. He's just like, what the... Resistance. I might actually show just a bit of Resistance because I actually played this for a little while. For some reason, I was interested in checking it out. And it's an FPS game that actually uses touch controls quite uniquely, which is a shame because I can't remember them now. But it is pretty cool the way they tried to implement some of these like unique features of the Vita into these games. So like Gravity Rush, the gyroscope stuff is great. Touchscreen stuff here was pretty handy for a shooter. There's a really interesting way of running in this game. I can't remember if it's like... touch here to start. I'm gonna have to make an edit in this video because it's just shown my email address that I do not want showing. So I'll just press continue and have a little look at Resistance. So is this a non-rails section, or are they going to drop me on the bridge? The graphics are actually really good in this game. The animation's good too.
Worse, don't worry. Rover 6 to checkmate 1-1. They'll never beat New Jersey.
So the Vita came out,
Sure use an airstrike on the GWB. Targets are
I think
starting to
maybe about 2 years before the PS4. And it had pretty much like average PlayStation 3 graphics. That's pretty cool. We need to, let me press this for a second. 62% battery. I think I started this video around 88% battery. So after an hour, we've lost like 22%. But we haven't exclusively played a Vita title, so... Maybe one full charge. Maybe you would get maybe 3 hours of a Vita game like this, which has got a lot going on. Such a nice screen. Oh yeah, so I can tap the touchscreen to throw a grenade. No, I'll use my secondary, I think it is. And there's a lot of guns in this game. All with some like really unique features. I kind of miss these games that have these crazy weapons. Yeah, like Turok 2 had some like really interesting weapons. How do I do this? Oh, if you hold down on the D-pad, you'll run. That's interesting. I remember that now. So I can load a crossbow bolt by using the touchscreen, and then and then die apparently. But as I said, it uses the touchscreen in unique ways to play this. So let's get out some kind of SMG. Hold the down button. There's another way to run as well, but I can't remember how. No ammo. Whoop. Am I dead again? Some really interesting ways of using the touchscreen to play this. I can tap here, for example, to do a melee move, which is neat. Okay, I keep accidentally touching the screen with my thumb. Alright, less resistance. Some other games we can have a look at. There's a bunch of RPGs you can play. Odin Sphere is a cool one. I think there's a better version of that on the Switch though. Dragon's Crown's just great, so it's great to have a version of that. Like, when we're able to emulate Vita games on Android later this year, at whatever point that is, apparently it's late January when we might see the first of it, but I'm not sure. But Dragon's Crown's definitely one of those games where you're like, oh my god, I can emulate that? That's fantastic. Lots of Metroidvanias here. Time Spin is a great one. Lots of platformers. You can play some Shovel Knight. Bloodstained, Curse of the Moon, the first one. The second one's really good, but the first one's pretty good too. That's not the 3D one, that's the NES one, by the way. The NES looking one, not the NES one. Fez, it's gorgeous. Not my kind of game, but it's gorgeous. Lots of arcade games, Hot Shots, Tetris, Virtua Tennis, Jet Set Radio, Monkey Ball, Resogun. Some good stuff. I just mixed a bunch of stuff there, like fun, arcade, stick it in that folder. JRPGs, Persona, Secret of Mana, the Yeast titles, and some roguelikes as well. Downwell's a pretty fun one. I've never actually played Darkest Dungeon. Really liked Rogue Legacy on the PC. And Risk of Rain's pretty cool too. Spelunky, just right there. They're all top roguelike games to have right there on your Vita. And yeah, that's Vita titles. And obviously there's a huge Vita library that you can play from. So we've covered a lot of information in this video. So there's a lot of positives. The negatives, the main negatives really is there's no L2 and R2 button. There is no left stick click or right stick click. The hardware is old, so it would be great to get a Vita with a better CPU, GPU, whatever, the whole deal. Like this, exactly this. Again, I'd love Sony to make another handheld again. It could really, really do some good in the world, I think. And I guess personally, I'm not too fond of these L2 and R2 buttons. They sort of remind me of like cheap acrylic that you'd use in like a school project. There's nothing really that bad about them, but I mean, they touch nicely. But there is something about the thickness and the fact that they're like, you can only like push down. I don't know. There's like a rigidness to them about the way you push them down. I think I sort of said the same thing about the Retro Pocket 3 Plus. Similar deal. I think I maybe like those a bit better. And I guess another factor for people to consider is that these analog sticks are really small, with not much travel to them. So if that's something that might bother you, there's really not. I don't think there's a lot you can do about that. I have some like thumbstick grips on here, so those help a bit. And oh my god, you can tell. Look at the screen here, the thumbnail stuff. So you do have to like regularly wipe down the Vita because you have the screen, but the cover stuff is all over the case, like all the way over. So if you were to buy a screen protector, you wouldn't just be buying one that, well, I mean, you can buy one that fits just the screen, but there are ones that weirdly fit over the entire screen, and you have to like slightly place it over the D-pad. And I had one once and I was like, this is too much effort, dude. I do not like it. But I do recommend, if you can, to try and put a screen protector on, because these are old devices and they're not going to be made again. They've been out of production for a long time. And then we got let's have a look at Autoplugin, because there's a lot of plugins here to look at, and they are for the Vita and they are also for the PSP. So for the PSP, for example, you've got some cool camera patch stuff. I think one of them lets you use the right stick or something. There's some games that have some tweaks. The Vita, there's a lot of plugins here. You can see on the right here, I've got a green circle for the ones I've installed. So Adrenaline, which is like the PSP UI thing to play your PSP, PS1 games. Analog Enhancer allows you to configure a dead zone. So again, lots of quality of life improvements if you want. You can disable the sticks. Boot sound. This plugin can play a WAV file as a custom boot jingle. Nice. I should do that. I haven't used my Vita in a really long time though, but the thing is, I wanted to do this video because there is something about the Vita. Like, if you don't have anything else, if you only want a handheld specifically for like one thing, or you would prefer it did like a few things well and you don't care about too much. So the Vita is like, okay, you've got the Vita library, amazing. There's so much there for anybody to enjoy, but it does really good retro. You saw with the comparison that the screen is really great, especially for PSP. Kind of threw me for a loop actually, because I really like the upscaling and extra features of PPSSPP on the Retro Pocket 3 Plus, because let's face it, this is like the market you're looking at for the same kind of price. $150 for the Retro Pocket 3 Plus, or $150 for a Vita in good nick meaning good quality. And so it's an interesting one now, but I would say in a year's time we're probably looking at some devices that might actually make the Vita just kind of like, it's been 10 years now, maybe you're not as interesting as you think, buddy. But the Vita is great. The Vita is actually my first like foray into handhelds again and jailbreaking and things like that. So 2 years ago, and it was around 2 years ago this time, I got the slim version of PlayStation Vita, and I looked at a lot of handhelds. I looked at Anbernic, I looked at several different things, and I said, I want a handheld that basically does a bunch of things really well. PlayStation, PSP, retro titles, things like that. But I want it to feel good, look good, and I want it at a good price. And I eventually went with the jailbreak option because I don't mind putting in a bit of effort to get stuff working. Then I made the leap and bought one of these, the 1000 OLED model. That was about 8 months later, and I loved it. And it was around that time I, backed the Odin Pro. And then I've been spending the last year playing this thing. And then at the start of December, I got the Retro Pocket 3 Plus. And I love this. This is my favorite at the moment. I love playing this. So it's tough. And I feel like sometimes I've wanted to do a video on about how someone should choose a handheld. Because there's so many that it must be really overwhelming. And it was overwhelming at the time, even 2 years ago, for me to pick this. So, it's... And I think that choice matters more if you are on a budget. If you're not on a budget, I'd pretty much say straight up go for the Odin Pro or the Odin Lite. But if this is a bit of a big boy for you, it's about the same size as a Nintendo Switch, then you would probably want something slimmer. And that's something I really enjoy about the Retro Pocket 3. It's slim, it's light, it's just very nice to play. But so is the Vita. I am not helping. So a lot of cool plugins there. Have a look at extras. I think that's stuff to do with the store. So, we've covered a lot in this video about the PlayStation Vita. We've looked at retro titles, emulation, N64, some Capcom titles, PlayStation 1 and PSP. We didn't do remote play, but you can remote play your PlayStation 3 or PlayStation 4. It's decent. I don't know what the internet connection's like now. I definitely don't think it's like 5G or anything. And when you're playing certain games, so let's say Bloodborne, for example, because you don't have left stick click or right stick click or the L2 and R2 buttons, they set it up so that the extra buttons are mapped to like the back and the front. They don't let you customize this, which is absolutely stupid. I think there is a third-party plugin that might let you do this, but I either didn't use it or wasn't interested at the time. But yeah, it's a very hit and miss thing. It's nice that you can do it, but honestly, with these like other Android handhelds now that let you use like PS Play, and you can even remote play your PlayStation 5, it kind of makes PlayStation Remote Play here on the Vita useless. But if this is the only thing you've got, it's not bad. Not bad at all. Loads of Vita titles. The ports are really fun. And there's a rather large store to select and look at a whole slew of things. Homebrew and everything. So, that's the PlayStation Vita in 2023. I don't know if I've really missed anything. There is a lot to this device if you want to encompass everything, but I think I basically got all the important stuff down there. And 2023 is going to be a really interesting year for the devices. I'm going to be looking at the Loki, which comes out some point later this year. We don't know when, but as soon as I do, I will be covering that device. At some point, I think I'd like to do more Switch on the Odin because the Skyline emulator is getting improved on a daily basis, so there might be some good stuff to cover there. The Retro Pocket 3 Plus, I want to do some more videos on this. We'll do more on that later. I can't think specifically what was. Definitely some more PlayStation 2, which is a huge boon over the Vita, So if I was to go to my PS2 library, a large amount of these games that I've left on this device, pretty much all of them are mostly playable. Sorry, it didn't make sense at first. But some of them do run amazingly, like Final Fantasy X runs exceptionally. So, that's the decision you'd have to make there. 150, Vita or PS2? Tough one. The only downside now is that the emulator, Aether SX2, is no longer being worked on. It's shut down. It's in a great state the way it is, and I didn't really see it improving a lot more as time went on, but it would have been nice to see more updates for it. But what Aether SX2 is a very exceptional PS2 emulator, which can run a lot of games even on this device, which is awesome. So I think we're just about covered there. If you like this video on the PlayStation Vita, please do give it a like. I'm always going to be producing more content, although we probably won't look at the Vita again. And so please do subscribe, hit that bell icon if you want to see more videos from me as soon as they come out. And thank you very much. This is the PlayStation Vita, and have a good day. Bye-bye.